Greetings, PressProsMagazine.com readers and Huddle watchers. I'm Bruce Hooley, and this is the Monday Huddle Show. 1 hour later than normal, although as much as we move this show around, I don't know that I can say that there is a normal starting time for it, but this is your normal cast of characters with Mr. Sonny Folks sitting beside me here on screen at least. We come to you on Zoom, on Facebook, on Twitter, various social sites, and you can send us a message and let us know your questions. NCAA tournament, Ohio State baseball, state boys division 3 and 4 all-star teams. We'll get into all of it tonight. Hello, Mr. Folks. Did you stay warm at chilly West Lafayette?
I've never been so cold in my life. It reminded me of a certain part of a well digger's anatomy.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was colder than that?
The wind over there in West Lafayette. And, you know, we went over there. I went over there on Friday, spent 2 nights, saw one baseball game in 32-degree weather where the real temperature was about 27 or 28, wind blowing 30, 35 mile an hour.
Yes.
Amazing, just amazing. And, you know, I am wont to occasionally, out of angst and occasional angst and just anger, write a column about why in the world that can't be done from May to July rather than March to May.
Mm-hmm.
And I got home, to my surprise, a lot of people from the college community apparently read it. I appreciate all the response that we've gotten, and some very heady, thoughtful response at that from people who I guess have wondered for years, why in the world are we trying to play baseball in the middle of March on a 35-degree day? We ought to know better than this, and yet we don't. So maybe we can touch on some of those letters we got tonight.
That would be fine, although I've told you it's never going to happen because colleges don't want to work 12 months out of the year. High school coaches don't want to be coaching in the summertime. I did tell you that I thought it would crush the Acme and Legion baseball programs, which you have already assured me have already been sufficiently crushed.
They are sufficiently crushed, not to worry about that. The problem is that nobody takes into account that there's kids that actually do want to play in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, well, no, they don't. They want to work. Have you ever asked them? Have you ever given them the option to work or play baseball? Because you're going to work for the next 45 years. Work and play baseball, or maybe be able to do both? And the answer to that is no. They assume, most adults assume, that kids want to do anything but be coached in the summer, play baseball. And honestly, the other gross and sad assumption is that baseball doesn't matter to kids as much as basketball and football does, and it does. And so maybe we'll get a chance to address some of the letters that we got, or emails that we got over the last couple of days.
All right. Well, we have a blue blood Final Four: Villanova, Duke, North Carolina, and Kansas. That is your Final Four. Duke plays North Carolina in the Final Four. They've never met in the Final Four. Kansas will play Villanova, and Duke is the favorite of the whole entire shooting match. North Carolina is the underdog. Villanova is the second. Kansas is the second favorite, and then Villanova. Kansas is the only number 1 seed. Villanova and Duke are number 2 seeds. North Carolina an 8 seed. They sure didn't look like it with the way they took apart the Cinderella St. Peter's Peacocks. So do you have a dog left in the fight in the NCAA basketball tournament?
Yeah, I like Kansas. When I watched Kansas play this year, I thought they were a more threatening team for 40 minutes of basketball, and more consistent over 40. Now, I'm not that they haven't had some clinkers and some bad nights, but when I've seen them this year, they always impressed me. Even though they lost to Dayton, they've always impressed me as being a team that honestly just you can't take a possession off against them defensively. Their center, their guards. I think Bill Self's a lot better coach than anybody gives him credit for. A lot of people say he with the talent,
holds it out there.
He should have won more than what he's won.
Yes,
but I believe that they're my personal favorite. I think they will persevere over Villanova and then beat Duke in the title game.
Well, we have a frontline starter for Villanova who is out, popped his Achilles late in their win, and all these games meld together. I think their win was over Was it Arkansas or no? It was over Houston. It was
Yes.
over Houston.
Yeah.
Duke beat Arkansas. And so Nova is down a little bit. So that will certainly hurt Nova in their chances to beat Kansas. The other game, as I said, is a Tobacco Road rivalry, and it is the quintessential college basketball rivalry. Carolina and Duke. And can you imagine, Sonny folks, if the North Carolina Tar Heels in his first year, if Hubert Davis beats Mike Krzyzewski in his last game at Cameron Indoor Stadium and then beats him in his last game, period, in the Final Four to get to the national championship game. Something tells me they might put that on a T-shirt if that happens.
It probably means more to talking heads than it does to anybody else in the country. That's all they can talk about on ESPN today. It must have been a slow news day. So I don't think it's Mount Rushmore stuff. No, I'm sure somebody will make some T-shirts, but it's not going to keep me awake or thinking about it the night before, during, or after. So it is certainly a neat way for the end of career, regarded depending on how you feel about Mike Krzyzewski. He certainly had one of the most legendary careers of anyone who's ever had a job in college basketball. He's right there with Wooden in my estimation, though he hasn't won 11 titles. But I also think he's playing against a different era of basketball than what John Wooden did as well. So it'll be interesting if they did when they do lock up. They're not both going to play, of course, in the finals. But that's what CBS is hoping for, and they got it.
Yes. Let me say this about John Wooden. I invite any of you who worship at the altar of the great Wizard of Westwood to Google John Wooden and Sam Gilbert, because all those years Wooden was winning those titles at UCLA, he had a sugar daddy paying all those guys like kings. He had NBA All-Stars who were willing to go to UCLA and play as backups so that they could get paid to play. And the NCAA, of course, couldn't ruin the sterling reputation of the great John Wooden, so they just let him skate on it. But it is well documented that UCLA was cheating all those years, as much as or more than UNLV or any of the other programs that are supposedly rogue programs. So I am rooting for Duke, and I will tell you why I'm rooting for Duke. Because I had the pleasure, and I do mean pleasure, in my 18 years at the Plain Dealer to cover the Final Four every year. It was my favorite assignment. I love college basketball. I love basketball. And I absolutely thought it was like one of those things where I kept looking over my shoulder all 18 years, waiting for somebody to tap me on the shoulder and go, "Hey, you
don't belong.
You rube from West Liberty, Ohio. You don't belong here. Go home." But instead, there I sat for 18 years in the first row, right across from the benches, right at the free throw line between Mark Blaudschin of the Boston Globe and Tony Barnhart of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I sat right between them for 18 years. And everybody from Danny Manning all the way to when North Carolina beat Illinois and Bruce Weber, the coach of Illinois, in the championship game, 88 to 2005, those were my years. And the first 5 years, Duke was at the Final Four every year, and 6 of the first 7. And so I got to sit and listen to Mike Krzyzewski a lot in press conferences. And I was so impressed with how thoughtful and insightful and analytical he was. And I will tell you, their players are a dream to cover. They're eloquent. They're thoughtful. They don't give you mumbly, no nonsensical answers. And despite all their success, I was never more impressed with Duke's players and with Mike Krzyzewski than after they lost in the national championship game to Arkansas in 1994. And they were so gracious and so hey, we've won these and it feels great and we're happy for Arkansas and what a season they've had. And so I have always been the guy who, when other people say, "Oh, I hate Duke. Oh, I hate Krzyzewski," I'm like, what are you hating on? They win with class. Isn't that what you're supposed to do? I know they've had they've had Grayson Allen and they've had, some guys people don't like, but if your biggest complaint against Duke is that they win or they play hard, then I think you're really complaining about what we'd all like every team we root for to do.
I just always am impressed by Krzyzewski and how he finds a way to win, or a tactic or an adjustment that no one else seems to have thought of. And I'll give you a perfect example. They were playing someone the other night that was getting into him pretty good in the first half. He comes out in the second half and plays just a simple 2-3 zone.
Yeah.
And it was game, set, match.
Yep.
It just they had no answer for it. It was Texas Tech.
It was Texas Tech
to be exact. And as long as they played them man to man, as long as they got into a transition game and running up and down the court, they didn't have the horses to run with the athletes that Texas Tech did. But he came out in the second half, put a simple 2-3 zone, the same kind that you would see at Miami East or at Covington when Bob Hulsman coached there, and they rolled in the second half. He is that kind of coach that, as you say, thoughtful, introspective. He knows the game that well. He is like a few guys that can look at the court or look at the football field or look at the baseball field and just instantly know where everyone's at and what they're doing. So, yeah, he's that kind of coach. And I don't know, depending on what people think about John Wooden and Sam Gilbert, that's news to me. I've heard that before, but I hadn't thought about the name Sam Gilbert.
Documented, my friend.
But you know what? It is what it is. So he still won the 11 titles. He still was there for one of the most interesting eras of all sports. When UCLA was the undisputed king, they were a monopoly, a dynasty like the Yankees were in all the years from the 40s through the 50s and the early 60s when Casey was there and Mantle and DiMaggio and Maris and all those guys were there. That's good for sports. I know people don't like it anymore because there's too much emphasis on winning, and we want everyone to share the joy and then get a trophy and feel like they belong. And we don't want anyone stigmatized as being second best to Duke or UCLA or the Yankees or somebody like that. But it's good for sport. It's good for people. It's interesting. It's, as you say, it's interesting to cover, to be there and witness it firsthand.
Do you remember the UD Flyers 111-100 loss to UCLA? I think it was in triple overtime when Donald Smith was the Flyers, alpha male. Johnny Davis was on that team. Mike Sylvester was on that team.
I remember it, but I don't remember it as well as when they got beat in I think it was the 64 championship game.
It was 67 or 68.
Glender Terrain played on that team. Donnie May, I think, was on that team. I remember that. Donaher was the coach, and of course, back then, I think the tournament was. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was 32 teams.
Might have been 16.
Might have been 16. I don't know, but it was. No one expected UD to win. We had just moved to Miami County, and no one expected that. And night after night, we'd sit there and watch those games on that grainy black and white television, and just amazed. I think they beat teams like West Virginia and Tennessee and people like that to get to the game with UCLA, and that was Al Cender. They had to play against him, and it was an amazing run. And I also remember them winning the NIT. I think that was in '68, maybe. They had a really good team and beat Kansas for the NIT title. So. There have been some great moments involving UCLA basketball, but I like to look back. I don't care if Sam Gilbert bought them and brought them there or not. I certainly like to look back on the guys that played back then, Al Cender and certainly Walton and Curtis Rowe and Sidney Wicks and all those kind of people. That was good stuff.
All right, let's get to our all-state teams. Division 3, Division 4. Shout out, congratulations to Layne Sarver of Tri-Village. He is a worthy recipient of the Division 4 in the state of Ohio. Player of the Year. Layne Sarver, fantastic player. He is your Player of the Year in Ohio. Congratulations also to Parker Davidson of Bradford. Junior makes first team All-State. Also very well deserved, 28.6 points per game. And of course, Jacob Pleiman of Botkins is a first team pick as well. And he definitely should have been.
How many players are on the first team?
I think 10.
A concession to our culture.
Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes, 10 are on the first team. So there you go.
There would be a great outcry across the land if there were only 5.
That would be. Jagger Landers of Antwerp is not someone we cover routinely, but we saw him play
Twice.
in the state tournament. Like him, I'm kind of surprised Landon Brewer of Antwerp was not a first or second team pick. Tyler Galouche of Springfield Catholic, really good player.
Mm-hmm.
Botkins had their hands full with him at times, and he is a second team pick. And then we slip all the way down to special mention. Jack Kanapke of Marion Local. Shocked that Jack Kanapke was not first, second, or third team All Ohio, and double uber shocked that Justin Finkbein, Josh Scantland were not special or honorable mention. If they were, I apologize, but I didn't see them on the list. But Wilson Suggs of Tri-Village was, and he deserved it. He made some big shots for Tri-Village. And Carter Pleiman of Botkins. I would have liked to have seen Carter Pleiman. I would like to see Carter Pleiman be second team All-State. And I would like to see Jamison Meyer get special mention or honorable mention. So I think some of our young men got short shrifted there. In Division III, your first team includes a guy we saw at the state tournament, Rayvon Griffith of state champion Cincinnati Taft, and Colin White, sophomore of Ottawa Glandorf. Really good player, really good player. Your player of the year in Division III is another guy we saw at the state tournament who I love, Dalen Swain of Afrocentric, 6'8" point guard, really good player. And we want to shout out and congratulate Connor Stonebreaker of Versailles, who was a third team pick, 6'7" junior, averaged 13 points per game. Thoughts on the all-state teams, Mr. Folks?
No, you can't have everybody on there. I mean, there's enough anyway. And the reason I said what I said is that you're just, there's going to be somebody complain loudly if you don't have at least 10 on there, because there is that much talent and it is highly subjective. I don't know how you can make the case for it being objective. And the other thing about the all-state teams are the people who vote on those players don't see half of them play.
That is correct.
So there's a little, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. But of all the people that you mentioned, I've seen 90% of them, and I will tell you this, that Parker Davidson can play with anybody.
Yeah.
He's good. Jacob Pleiman is good. Rayvon Griffith is good. Patrick Swayze is really good. Swain is really good. No, there's nobody that you mentioned there that is undeserving. And certainly when you think about Tri-Village and you think about the great players they've had, and I go back to Colton Linkus, who is related, by the way, to Sarver. That's a remarkable story. He's a remarkable athlete and player, and I certainly hope he gets a great and deserving opportunity to play at the next level.
Well, Layne Sarver, and I will see him next Monday night, as I was honored today to be asked by Josh Sagister to speak at their boys basketball banquet. I attended my own basketball banquet tonight, my daughter's basketball banquet, and it was great. And I love being around teams that achieve a lot, because when you have a team like that, they have a great culture. And when you have a great culture, it's been set by the coach. And I know that is true of the program that Josh Sagister has built at Tri-Village the last 2 years. He has very wonderfully talented players, but they play together. They don't resent Layne Sarver, and Layne is not a selfish basketball player. He understands his role on the team, and he plays to his role. And so I'm looking forward to hearing from Layne next week as to what he's going to do in college, because he has options. He can play basketball, of course. He could play quarterback at a lot of Division II and III schools, and maybe some Division I schools. I wouldn't bet against Layne Sarver being a starting quarterback in the MAC someday. And he could go and be a track athlete because he's a state high jump champion. So I don't know what he's going to do, but he's got options. And if what I heard about his offers in basketball is true, that only one school has offered him so far in basketball, man, you guys ought to wake up out there, because Layne Sarver is a tremendous basketball player.
Well, the one thing, and I think we mentioned this last week, that hurts him as far as a recruit or a potential recruit, a Division I recruit, is, again, who have you played against? Yeah, you've done all those wonderful things. You've achieved you've scored all those points, achieved all those accolades. But again, Do you play against the kind of competition that you're going to face when you get here? Yes, you're 6'5", 6'6", 200 pounds, 210 pounds. You can jump, you can shoot, you can run, you can defend, you can do all those things. But can you do it against Division I NCAA talent? And I look at players like him sometime, and they've always said this about the OAC, the Ohio Athletic Conference. That's Baldwin Wallace, of course, and Muskingum, and Ohio Northern, Wilmington, Marietta. They play great basketball. It's a fun basketball league to go watch if you ever go up to Ada and up there. And they're all kids that can just 6'5" kids that can run and shoot. And you see a lot of 189 games up there, and it's very entertaining basketball. And there's a lot of Layne Sarvers amongst that crowd, and you look at them and you just know that they could as easily play at Miami and Bowling Green and Kent State and schools like that as they could at Ohio Northern.
There's no doubt in my mind that's true of Layne. He can play at the MAC level in basketball. I believe he can play there in football, and I don't know what he high jump, but I've seen him rebound, so I know he can get off the floor. All right, before we get on out of here, you have letters from the readers that you would like to share, and I would like for all of you to share in the opportunity to win a $50 Layman's gift card. We've awarded our February winner, and all you need to do is email pressproscontest@gmail.com, pressproscontest@gmail.com, to be eligible to win that $50 Layman's gift card. Layman's always open online at lehmans.com. You get a 10% discount when you use the promo code PressPros10 when you order PressPros10. But send us an email and enter our contest. We'll pull that one on April the 1st, and we will not be kidding if we say that you are the winner of the Layman's gift card. $50 to spend at Layman's however you like, and you can spend it online. You don't have to leave the comfort of your home office or living room. Just call them up on the web, dial it up, use the gift card, boom, the merchandise will appear on your doorstep, and you will love it. lehmans.com, 10% off when you use the promo code PressPros10. All right, what letter would you like to share, Mr. Foltz?
Well, give me a second right here. I'm going to pull this up. As I mentioned, there were a number of people who took the time and wrote in today over a column that we published last night that's called "A Frigid Start and Rigid Opposition to Change in Spring Sports is No Surprise." And kudos go out to somebody named Chuck Faulkner from South Central Ohio, who wrote and said, "I loved your article on why we don't play baseball in the summer. You put it perfectly. Some do. They do it in Iowa. They agree to get along with it, and they do it because it's doable and it's the right thing to do. In the meantime, we spend all this money on to study climate change, which is a theory. These are his words, not mine. That may never happen in our lifetime. But playing baseball in warm weather is not a theory, and it is in our lifetime. It can easily be done. We pass the buck. This is the human condition. We get tied up with theories and turn our backs on something that's real. We say we want what's best, but not if we're inconvenienced. Kids who play in freezing weather are inconvenienced, and no one seems to care. Thanks for taking the time to express this view." I've always said there's two things about baseball. We make a big deal, and I say that the kids who play in the spring play through the hypocrisy of administrators and people who assume that because baseball is a non-revenue sport that it's irrelevant, that it doesn't matter as much as baseball and basketball. And by the way, I should also mention softball as well, because you were there and saw Austin Miller play last year, and that's
Skip Miller. Yep.
At Skip Miller at Bradford. So baseball is highly relevant to kids who train and prepare and look forward to that 6 weeks that they get to play each spring. And there are people who say, "Wait a minute, what do you mean 6 weeks? They play March and they play April and they play May and they play in May." No, they don't, because by the time you get half your games rained out or a third of the games rained out, you end up playing about 16, 18 games, and you get those squeezed into a 6 weeks period. So it really is a lot of preparation for the fact of getting to play and getting to do what you like to do for 6 weeks. But, we make such a big deal. And I talked to the coach at Purdue this weekend, and Greg Goff, who was a very charming guy and a very open, well-spoken guy. And I said, "Do you think it will ever happen in the NCAA? Because the discussion is underway right now as to play college baseball starting April 15th through July the 15th for the College World Series and the conclusion of the season. And he said it has to be agreed upon and voted on by a majority of all college coaches. And he says this will not happen because the coaches in the South, they don't want it. They already have
an advantage. They got a competitive advantage.
The recruiting advantage. They do not want to see this spread to the northern tier teams in the Big Ten or the Mountain conferences, the Mountain West or the Big East or something like that. They don't want the playing field leveled. They like it the way it is. Now,
can I stop you? Because here's the deal. I feel bad for you, my friend, because I know this is a hard issue for you. I know you really want this to happen, and I'm just telling you, it's never going to happen.
No, it's not.
And I feel bad for you because it's a little bit like I really care about Ohio State basketball, and it's not a comparable to baseball, but relative to football, the number of people who really care about basketball is infinitesimal. And it's like frustrating for me as an Ohio State basketball fan. Like, why don't more people pay attention to basketball? And the fact of the matter is they just don't. They just don't, and they won't. And I hate it for you because I know baseball's your thing, and I know you got a noble cause here, and you talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. It's never going to happen. So
you and I both get fed up with the hypocrisy of administration. And the thing that irritates me the most is all these coaches and athletic directors across the spectrum of sports in this country who say, we want to do what's best for kids. We want to do what's best for the game. I've heard college coaches say, we want to do what's best for college baseball because college baseball is honestly now it's equivalent to AA baseball as the major leagues cut back costs and they streamline their farm systems. The college game has never been more relevant and more important than what it is right now. And yet they really don't want to do what's best for the game. And this is what Chuck was alluding to when he said this is the human condition. We're all hypocrites when we say we want to do what's best for kids, and then you make them go out there and play in 38-degree weather. We live in a culture that wants safety at all costs. You can't pitch inside. You can't slide hard to break up a double play. You can't run over the catcher anymore for the sake of safety, but yet you'll send kids out there on a 34-degree day with blowing wind and rain and say, hey, if you pop a hamstring, well, as long as you're healed by football season, it's okay. This is what I think matters to the argument about baseball. And I've heard the OHSAA people say it. I've heard Dan Ross one time took me aside. He said, I really wish you'd kind of let up on this because he just like you. He said it isn't going to happen. Jerry,
you have talked about this for 7 solid minutes.
That's okay. And you know what? If I'm the only guy talking about it, Bruce,
you are.
I am the only guy talking about it.
I know you are. Yes.
No one else cares. And yet we want to do what's best for kids. Now, if you ever get as tired of hearing of that phrase as I do, you'll talk for 17, 27, 70 minutes about it because it's as ridiculous as what happened at the Oscars last night.
Yeah.
So
I hope you get your summer baseball sometime. I really
no, I don't. It'll never happen in my lifetime because it's just like you. Coaches want their family trip to the mountains. They want to go to the lake. They want to boat. They want to have their time. There is a certain issue of the calendar runs out, but on the other hand, those same athletes that would rather play baseball, they're doing as soon as they get out of school, by the way, it's lifting for football and AAU basketball. So there is the matter of choice there. And if you ask kids, if you ask them and they're honest with you, you give them an opportunity to be honest with you, 7 minutes. They'll tell you.
It's 9 now. It's 9 now. So do you have another letter we can do in a minute? 1 minute? This might be my last show at Press Pros, folks.
I'm making notes.
I've angered the bear on his number one issue, summer baseball.
I'm making notes.
I thought I'd had it up to here. Now I've had it up to here.
Well, but I hate to tell you this, but there's a lot of people out there who honestly agree, and they don't have the cajones to sit there and confront somebody and say this publicly.
You do. I know that.
At my age, I got nothing to lose.
We don't have a cajon shortage at
No.
Press Pros Magazine. We are overstocked in
We
cajon.
are over cajoned.
If you don't think so, read the column about officiating. Yes, we are over cajoned at Press Pros. Yes. All right. Yeah. One final 1 minute letter. You want to end on a high note.
I do want to
over
end on a high note for all the people who wrote into us, and we published some of these in our Reader Speaks last week. We had some very kind letters about your column about officiating. Somebody said, don't throw stones because it's not that easy a job if you've never done it. I have done it. I don't know if you've done it. There's a lot of people that have done it. And honestly, it's just an evolution of the game that nobody really likes. And again, a lot of people feel voiceless as to what they can say, who to say it to, and will they even be heard. And it's like you said, it's never going to happen. Someone who wrote in and said, honestly, I really feel like I'll live long enough to see somebody critically injured on a basketball field or a basketball court the way it goes, because it gets rougher and rougher and rougher with each passing year. And it's hard to understand for the kids and for the people who watch.
Can I still come to the meeting tomorrow? Am I still gainfully employed by Press Pros Magazine, or do I have to do penance?
I'll call you in the morning.
All right, very good. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed the show tonight. If it was my last one, I went out with a bang. I will hopefully see you on the pages of Press Pros Magazine tomorrow. Mr. Folks, thanks for your time tonight. Catch the replay on Facebook, on our social channels. Patronize our sponsors. Thank them. They're great people. Enter the contest for the Layman's gift card. PressProsContest@gmail.com. And we'll see you all again next week.